So, with that, this is a continuation of the appeal of the order to comply in relation to an unsightly premises order. What staff member is going to speak to this?
Your Worship, I will.
Okay, so we just got a memo from you. Do you want to outline the current status of the situation, bearing in mind that people do have the memo and the pictures you've given us?
Yes, Your Worship. So where we are, the order to comply was originally issued to Mr. Wong on April 22nd. He was given 2 extensions to bring the property into compliance. This morning at 9:30, one of our bylaw inspectors was on scene and determined there continues to be 2 derelict vehicles. One of them is not accessible. There continues to be some pallets that are in the backyard. There continues to be stacks of boxes in the carport. There continues to be piles of unsightly items. But I will make note of the fact that 1 vehicle has been towed and 1 container has been removed as well. What's at stake for us is the specific order.
Are you there? Have we lost Mark?
Seem to be frozen, Your Worship.
Yeah. Now, okay, so 1 vehicle, 1 container has been removed. Now, what is the situation over vehicles? Because as I understand, vehicles may not be like other assets in terms of unsightly premises.
Through Your Worship, they can have 1 derelict vehicle on the site, and if vehicles are obviously licensed for use, then they can have more than 1 vehicle.
Well, when you say a derelict vehicle, do you mean an unlicensed vehicle?
I think Mark is back. I'll let him answer.
All right, Mark.
Through Your Worship, my apology for the technical difficulty there. Yes, a derelict vehicle can be defined as an inoperable vehicle or an unlicensed vehicle.
Okay. Now, I just want to run through the possible resolutions that we can pass today. Staff has recommended that we deny the appeal and confirm the unsightly premises order, right? Someone, right? Cecilia?
Correct. Yes, correct.
Okay. So as part of that, if we want to deal with the vehicle, the unsightly premises order, would that allow you to tow a derelict vehicle, or do you have to have more proof than that?
Your Worship, my apologies again. My screen reset due to technical difficulties. I lost about the last 30 seconds.
Can you deal with the unsightly premises order? Can you deal with the vehicles, or do you have to have something more?
Your Worship, yes. Under the unsightly and under the order to comply, we can deal with the vehicles. We could have them arranged to be removed.
All right, so you don't need anything specific or special about the vehicles, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, we could amend the order in some fashion. For instance, we could ask for proof of the licensing for the 2 remaining vehicles or something to do with the vehicles, right?
Your Worship, that is correct.
Okay, we could rescind the order, so basically that's to vacate the order, right?
That is correct.
Or we could provide further time, and to do that, we would adjourn this to a specific date, right?
That is correct.
Is that the basic scenario we've got, the basic choices that council has today?
That is correct according to the section within the appeals of a order to comply.
Okay, so the shipping container, if the order, the unsightly order stands, if it's the impression that the shipping container is unsightly, that could be removed under that order, right?
Through your worship, the shipping container would be addressed under a long form procedure under zoning bylaw 8500. It wouldn't be included under the 7162 unsightly bylaw. That would be a separate action.
Not by, that would be a staff action, not a council action, right?
That is correct, Your Worship.
All right, so the unsightly order would include the vehicles, all the other assets, just not the shipping container, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so let's work through this. Unless you've got anything more to say, I understand that Mr. Wong, the son of the owner, is here wanting to speak to the matter further. And we have his, Mr. Wong, we have your letter, which we just received today, giving us the status up to date. So what's the story from your point of view? What do you want us to do? Do you want to unmute yourself?
I've been working, so my brother and I and my mom, 89-year-old mom, was working so hard to try to comply, and especially last year, I thought we were finished, and it's still not satisfactory. Look, I kept the backyard the way it was since the first hearing on June 21st, so that way both sides, both neighbors have no grounds to complain or call it unsightly or whatever. And yet the next door neighbor has piles of junk in the patio and the downstairs, and I'm not complaining because it's none of my business to complain what they have. But have you all read, saw my pictures, right? I told Gary this morning and previously if you took a picture of your face up close, of course it's going to look unsightly. If you look at the big picture, it should be looking like every normal backyard, And then I have some issues with some of the new pictures, which was not there in the last two hearings, at the corner of the house. It was just the plastic container buckets, and it was some old books and bottles and cans that I recycled them. So the backyard shouldn't be an issue because those pallets are for the fence, and the new owner of the duplex is not coming out with any money, especially not even for the nails. So you've seen the picture that I included on a house on number 5 Road, Highway to Heaven. They look like pallets, and they look quite decent. Have anybody seen it?
We have your pictures you gave to us.
Yeah, one of them showing the house on number 5 Road with the horizontal slats that looks like pallets. So that's for the backyard is more than good enough, when we get to do it, because the next door tenant, the upstairs and downstairs, wanted to help, but they were busy, and then it was a fairly long hot summer. So over a weekend or so, we can do this project. And then one of the vehicles, I can insure it. If not, I have the option to tow it away, just like the first one. And then I guess I'm allowed to have at least one that's uninsured, right? That's the minivan that's sticking out. And I didn't have a chance to move it back. I was busy with something else. And then my brother and I have 2 vehicles that are insured, that are late model cars. So that should be taken care of. I can insure one of them. So So I'm allowed to have one that's uninsured and the rest are insured, right? So that should be taken care of, and that shouldn't be an issue. And then I've written the letter that say that it should be satisfactory, that no one would have grounds to complain again, or driveway is decent except for the disposal bin. It's not a shipping container. And the house next door on Gower, the back of the house on Gower, has this Container West shipping container that's been there for years. Anybody seen it? I included the picture on Gower Street with the Container West, the beige color shipping container on the driveway. So mine is temporary, and once it's all ready, all tidied up and ready to haul away, that shouldn't be an issue. And I want to finish it off as quickly as soon as possible. But I figured that if somebody has shipping container, motor home, all sorts of trailers, some really big trailers in their driveway that's been there for years, then mine is temporary and shouldn't be an issue. So that I hope that resolved that. And then all the rest, I've already cleared as much as possible of the stuff under the cherry tree. So it was quite an improvement. So, and then you didn't have a latest picture of the garage of the boxes. So I figured that it's not an issue anymore because you didn't have a latest picture today that was not taken this morning. And the previous bylaw officers in the past have said, as long as it's out of sight and out of mind, it seems to be okay to them. And I don't know why it's being nitpicking. So that's why I figured that I worked very hard in the long, hot summer, and I figured that this should be more than satisfactory for now. I don't know about what your opinion is. I can actually take care of all this remaining issues, which shouldn't take long, and I hope that that'll be satisfactory, because otherwise it's been lingering on too long without ever telling me if it's satisfied, whether instead it's nitpicking and looking under the corner of the house to see what's in there, and that was never the issue in the last two hearings, So that's how it is. And I don't know. I thought I checked with ICBC that informed that single-family detached homes are not required to be insured, except those parked on strata units, But anyways, I'll insure one of the two vehicles then. I hope so. But I still need the final bin. I still have some other stuff to get rid of. But since there are homes that have shipping containers on the driveway for a number of years, then mine is not permanent. And then just hopefully ask for closure of this file, because it's been under my neck. It's like a knife under my neck for so long, without any closure or resolution. I hope without those few exceptions, I hope that council will be able to decide that it's to close the file.
So you've got two automobiles in your front drive. Are either of them insured?
Oh yes, that's the you're looking at two of the red cars, right? The Buick Allure and the Pontiac Montana on the driveway in my picture.
Are they both insured?
Yes. Oh yeah, they're both insured.
Okay. I'll ask, are there any questions or comments of council? Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, through your worship, to the delegate. Thanks for the presentation, Edward. It answered many of my questions. The only one that remained in your memo to us, it mentioned that the container that remains, you still need it. And I don't think I heard a timeline. I think it would be important if you could give us some indication of how long it might be to address that container, because I think that's kind of the main point. If that gets removed and more stuff's going into it, then that stuff is coming from perhaps one of the other problematic areas. So I think it's only in all of our interest to know the time needed to efficiently pack that remaining container.
Okay, I'll answer you. Yeah, I have stuff on storage, outside the premise in a storage yard container. That's why I have to. I'm paying rent on it. That's why I have to get rid of it. So I don't know about the timeline. How much timeline that the council would allow. It's only one issue that's left. That's the shipping container. Then I don't know, maybe a month.
Well, Councillor Wolf, you'll recall what staff said. If
That's reasonable.
Excuse me. If we uphold the unsightly premises order, that container is not part of what they will be dealing with. Councillor Day.
Sir, if I may, just to clarify, Your Worship, then, or maybe or maybe staff can answer, can staff do that process to remove the container without us going ahead with the appeal of order to comply? Or if we delay it, can they still go ahead with the container step? I just want to know the order.
Mark?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Wolf, the order wouldn't be an order, it would be a long-form action by staff under zoning bylaw 8500. That would be a separate process, it would be independent. Just wanted to clarify a couple of points too as well. There are 2 additional vehicles other than the 2 red vehicles referenced by Mr. Wong that remain derelict and uninsured, and those would be covered specifically under the order, in addition to the other offending materials as well.
So there's how many vehicles in total?
Your Worship, there are 4 vehicles.
All right, so you're saying 2 for sure, and maybe a third, maybe a fourth.
That is correct, Your Worship. And now there is a provision for an exemption, rather, for 1 derelict vehicle that can remain on the property. 1 would be required to be removed should the order be upheld.
All right. So you've got the issue of the vehicles. The shipping container, as I understand, is not included if we uphold the unsightly premises order, right?
Your Worship, that is correct.
Okay. Councillor Day. Thank you very much. Oh, just a minute. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Perfect. Mr. Wong, you have shown us a picture of a pallet fence. And I note that all those pallets are the consistent color and size. Each one is exactly the same. The pallets that you've got in the back of the property, which is also in your picture, are all different pallets. They're different sizes, they're in different conditions. Some are older, some are a little bit newer. They don't have consistent strapping, so they're not going to look like the pallet fence that you sent us a picture of. Are you willing to get rid of those pallets?
Well, when we have this fenced project, because you know why? We have that many to choose from. We have mixed and matched to make sure that they're consistent. And then, I don't know, maybe we'll have to stain some of them and stain them so that it'll last longer. And then whatever remaining, I think I have someone in Langley to come to pick up whatever remaining pallets. So that's not an issue. That one there, if it's good enough for the backyard, I'm sure it'll be fine with with the neighbors, especially the one at the duplex apartment, the renters, because I think two guys are going to try to help out, if we got all the material for the nails, and possibly may have to stain it to last longer, because basically they are pretty sturdy. They're going to put back to back, and then maybe some just to raise up a certain level, and have like a fence, just almost similar to the one on number 5 road that you're referring to.
Okay.
So that okay.
So to be clear, you don't want to get rid of the pallets. You're keeping them. What about?
Not yet, anyways.
Okay. So
No, it's not permanent.
Just to be clear, staff have said there are 4 cars, not 2. Why were those not mentioned in your letter?
For me?
Yes. Mr. Wong, you said that there were 2 cars in your letter, a Montana and a Lure. Staff have just
Yeah,
said
that's insured.
and that you have 4 cars. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm, right.
Okay. And are you willing to get rid of the container?
As soon as I'm finished with it, which is I got to get rid of my storage. I got a couple of storage in out in Bridgeport, and I'm paying a lot of rent for it. It's just a matter of working hard at it. Just get it as quickly as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have no other questions of Mr. Wong.
And regarding the cars, initially there were 3 of them, right? That's uninsured. I got rid of one, and I have the option to get rid of one or insure it. I don't know, for sentimental value, because it's my dad's last car that he drove, and he only drove it once or twice. And then I am allowed to have one that's uninsured. Then, right? Is that correct?
All right. Councillor Au.
Yes, I just want to ask staff, so are the pallets the problem? If his intention is to use that for defense later on, could that be a problem?
Through your worship to Councillor Al, the issue is that much of the offending materials date back to April, and there's been no action. There's been no sign of them being utilized. And I might also add, although it's related to a separate action, that the storage container, or shipping container rather, dates back to November 2019, I believe. So there is a pattern of these materials residing for a long period of time in piles without being put towards any construction use or any applicable use, such as building a fence. There's no evidence of that work being undertaken or even appear to be undertaken.
All right. Okay. So the question is, in our opinion, is this an unsightly premises? Again, I emphasize, if it is unsightly, it's not going to include the shipping container. And staff can take independent action, independent of what we're talking about today, on the shipping container. Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, through the chair. Just a quick note before a question, 13 years, 15 complaints, and as I think I mentioned before, to me it's an overall issue of the unsightly premises bylaw and community safety and health and other factors. So I believe this is my 3rd time dealing with this issue. So I'll ask you, Mr. Wong, the same question I asked you last time. You're asking for an extension essentially, and what assurances can you provide that you will comply and have things completed by another extension, since you were unable to do it previously?
Well, last time I asked for an extension because of the heat wave, and then it was quite a hot summer. So this would be my 3rd chance. Like they say, 3 strikes, you're out, right? So this is my 3rd and final strike. And then regarding the shipping container, since November, I've already unloaded. Let me see. I got proof from Cascades Recovery, the invoice or the receipt that I've actually utilized it. So it was not an issue. I did utilize it at least about 4 or 5 times now. So it was utilized. And as for the pallets, well, I'm gonna pressure the new owner. You have to pay your fair share of your half of your fence, because it's half and half. Like the back fence was paid by Wayne Barron, the responsibility for half of it back in 1998. So there's no action regarding who foots the bill. I already asked the agent before, why don't the owner's insurance company foot the bill? Because that was happened back in 1991. Our insurance company paid for half of it, but the agent came back and said, no, we're not going to even use our insurance to pay for it. So that's why it's been stalled for so long. And then the pallets, well, those are the material anytime when we're ready, because the tenant upstairs will say, since last summer, it'll be a good summer project, but we never got to it. So that's why I'm going to have to talk to the agent or the owners about it. That the city is after me for the unsightly premise, because we don't have a fence. It's been broken for a very long time. So that basically that could be resolved with the owners. Okay.
All right. Anything else, Councillor Hobbs?
No, thank you.
Okay, my question of staff is, when we're talking about an unsightly premises, let's assume that the front of the property was pristine. Is it unsightly if the backyard is a mess? Or is it basically the view from the street?
Your Worship, my understanding is it's the visibility of it. It can be such that the neighbors complain it is unsightly, and it is viewed as being stored offensive materials in the yard for an extended period of time. I can follow up with a specific definition of whether it's limited towards the frontage, but my understanding is it's visible, if it is visible in the backyard as well.
All right. To get the discussion going, I'll say what my thoughts are. The last thing I want to do is put this thing off for one more minute. This is the third time we've dealt with it, and I think it's time we moved on it. But the fact is, we've got these vehicles, and I would support adjourning this till the next General Purposes Committee meeting for Mr. Wong, or the owner, to show proof of the status of all the vehicles in his premises. Secondly, well, in explanation, I frankly think that while the backyard wouldn't be, I don't particularly like what it looks like, I'm not sure that it raises to the standard of unsightly. And the shipping container, staff has told us that's outside this action anyway, and they can take steps under the bylaw if they think it's warranted. So what it boils down to, from my point of view, and again, I'm encouraging others to weigh in, is to adjourn this for, 2 weeks, and adjourn it for 2 weeks, and in the meantime, require proof of the registration and the insurance status of all the vehicles in front. That's my suggestion, but I'll throw it open. Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. I think this has gone on long enough, and the neighbors have been really put to the ringer. This Mr. Wong has been given numerous extensions, and we've heard every excuse. If you read the letter, you can see the inconsistencies. And what I'm particularly unhappy about is that Mr. Wong alludes to the fact that there are only 2 vehicles when there are in fact 4. I think it's time to get staff to start with first of all, deny the appeal and let's move forward. And secondly, I think that we need to get started with the long form to get rid of the container. It's enough. This many years, it's just out of control. I had a neighbor similar to this, and it was a nightmare living beside that mess. The rats we had in our backyard was horrible. I had to call the city in to help me deal with the rats. Okay, maybe there has been progress made, but I'm sorry. I think that enough is enough, and let's just get down with it.
Okay, Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Can I ask staff a question compared? Has there been improvement, and how much improvement has been made to the status that the front yard is whatever, it's a certain standard, the backyard is not? Has he made some progress?
Through Your Worship to Councillor McNulty, there has been some progress regarding the property as a whole towards making it less unsightly. And we have example of the fact that one vehicle was indeed removed, one container was removed, and certain offending, percentage of the offending materials were removed as well.
Okay, I guess I'm not so much hung up on the vehicles can be dealt with. That's no problem. Same with the pallets. I'm concerned about, again, I've got what Mr. Wong has sent us, but when I look at attachment 1, those boxes, cans, tubs, etc., all still there. And if you look at attachment 1, CNCL 7, I mean, that stuff could be cleaned up, and most of it probably dumped in the container because the container is going to get empty. Or is that this 7, 8, and 9? Are these old pictures or these current pictures? This is October 21st.
Bill, you need to get close to your microphone.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. It says October 21st. Okay? I am asking, are these new pictures or old pictures?
April 20th.
That's last year.
2020, right. But have these been cleaned up is what I've asked.
Yeah, that's the original staff report. Mark?
And then on page 11, we got April 21st, 2021. It looks like there was some progress being made.
Mark?
Through Your Worship to Councillor McNulty, within the memo on attachment 1, we can see the progress that's time-stamped to today.
Right.
There has been some improvement in reducing the piles in the backyard. Nonetheless, there are large piles of debris, tarps, pallets, newspapers, and the like that still remain.
Okay. I do want to be fair in terms of the judgment to Mr. Wong, what have you, and looking what he's, again, what we've got this afternoon, the backyard, other than the pallets and what have you, seems to be is that the backyard? It seems to be fairly clean. Am I wrong?
Through Your Worship to Councillor McNulty, what remains in the backyard are piles of pallets, and that would fit the definition of what is considered an unsightly part of a real property.
Well, okay. All right. Okay. All right. That's all for now. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what each of us have to decide, whether it's unsightly or not. Councillor McPhail.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, thank you, Mr. Wong, for coming forward today and for sharing your story. And I do commend you for the work that you've undertaken to date. But looking at the pictures that were brought to our attention in the memo from staff, I really am concerned about the continuing condition of the property. Frankly, I find it unacceptable and hazardous to you and your family and to the neighborhood. And I think the neighborhood deserves better, and I'm prepared to move on the motion that's in the package, Your Worship.
All right. Councillor Steves.
Thank you. Actually, I support what the mayor has suggested. I've looked at the old pictures and the new pictures, and there's a tremendous improvement. I'm not bothered by the pallets, but I think if we gave 2 weeks, that Mr. Wong should simply forget his fence and throw those pallets in the container, and most of the problem would be solved. In terms of the cars, the 2 cars that seem to be a problem are in the carport, and I don't understand why unsightly premises would actually even include the carport, and why they simply can't put a curtain around the carport and we don't even see them. But if it's a problem, then he should clean out the carport. But it looks like he's cleaned everything else up except the carport in the backyard, and he's got the big blue container there to put the garbage in. And as what he says, he's taken a couple of loads out already. You can't get rid of this stuff without it. So I would suggest that I would actually give him a month, but I think 2 weeks should be enough. It doesn't look like there's that much left that he couldn't get out of there, and just simply forget about the fence, because he may not get around to doing it anyway, and the pallets would remain for a long time. So it would be better to forgo the fence, put a different fence in, get rid of the pallets, and clean this stuff up and start over. And I think we should give him 2 weeks to do it.
Thank you. Councillor Rao.
Yes, Your Worship. I think I agree with many other colleagues that this has been a long process, and I also feel that we cannot have this go on forever. However, as I look at the changes over time, the improvements over time, and I can say that the backyard has improved a lot, and at least to me, I think it has improved to the acceptable level. Because if we take on a very hard line on the backyard, I think many of the houses in Richmond could be problematic. Now, I think regarding the backyard, I think what is left behind as a problem is the pallets. And personally, I would support the use of those materials for the fence, because for the idea of circular economy, I think that's actually a good idea, instead of getting rid of them and buying wood from somewhere else to do the fence. I think the problem is more with the front. And if we have to enforce the order, I think at least I would like staff to come up with a list of things that has to be dealt with. Because again, the issue of the cars, the container, and some of the things are still unclear to me, what has to be removed. Like are the boxes under the carport be a problem? So I think before we make the final decision on this, I would like staff at least give us a clarity of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the 5 things, or 4 things, or 3 things that is to be removed in order to satisfy with the order. And then we can make a decision on it, whether or not those are reasonable. So, in a nutshell, I would support the idea of giving at least two more weeks, either for Mr. Wong to quicken up the process of cleaning up and dealing with the vehicles, and for staff to come up with a list or some clarification on what are the required actions that has to be taken. And what I'm trying to avoid is that, we go into this place, do the cleanup, and give a very expensive bill to Mr. Wong. That's what I hope that we can avoid. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you, Mr. Wong, for your presentation and for all your efforts over a long time to clean up the premises. I will be supporting staff's recommendation in the report. And to me, this involves more than just cars. As I've mentioned, this is more of a community issue and a health issue and a health and safety issue as well to everybody, including, as has been mentioned, Mr. Wong's family. So the back and front yards, in my interpretation of a bylaw, are definitely relevant, especially when neighbors look into the backyard and it can be seen by everybody. But it also is relevant because it does tie into the health and safety factor, whether you're talking fire or whether you're talking other health issues. So in supporting the recommendation, that allows staff to move forward with their interpretation and their professional application of the bylaw as it's written. There isn't a strict objective test on what an unsightly premise is. There's also subjective tests that have to be applied, and it's up to staff to determine if Mr. Wong is in compliance or not with the bylaw. So that's why I'm supporting the recommendation. With regards to the container, yes, it's not part of the bylaw, but staff can continue working on that as we've been told. Yeah, it's just a larger issue than just simply pallets and that type of thing. Staff can apply their interpretation and professional opinion with regards to the bylaw and their discretion when they enforce it, just like police and bylaw officers do and staff do with every other bylaw and law. So I'll be supporting the recommendation. Thank you very much.
Just before I go to Councillor Wolf, a question of staff. If we go along with the staff recommendation, which is to deny the appeal and confirm the order, what would be the process for those vehicles? Would you still be requiring proof of insurance, proof of registration?
To your worship, if those vehicles were not registered and they were deemed to be derelict, in other words, if we don't have proof that they've been licensed, then Mr. Wong can retain one vehicle. The other vehicle, there would be arrangements made to have a contractor remove that vehicle.
In other words, it would be up to him. It would be up to him to show the requisite proof if we say that this is an unsightly premises. He would have to provide proof on the vehicles in any case, right?
To your worship, that's correct. Right now, there's no proof that they have been registered, and Mr. Wong himself has not stated that those two vehicles are indeed registered. So the evidence that's been examined for us right now is that those two vehicles remain unregistered. Principally, for example, there's no plate that's on one of the vehicles whatsoever.
All right, so when you say registration and insurance are one and the same, right? If they're either both or
Correct.
neither. Okay, Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. I asked the question at the beginning, and that helped me form my opinion on the matter. And I was looking to actually provide Mr. Wong the time that he said he needed, which was a month. And just hearing now about the need to get registration number, that can be done within hours. But filling the container, not sending it away half full, is good for anyone. So I think we need to give the time needed. And if I've heard around the table here, 2 weeks is what people are going with. So I'll support that. I would have supported more, but hearing the appetite around the table, I'm going to support or not support the staff recommendation, but ask for the 2 week deferral. Thanks.
All right, Councillor Liu.
Thank you. I agree with a lot of what's been said. I agree that this has been ongoing for a long time. I also agree that Mr. Wong has really put in a lot of effort to move things forward, to get some things done. And I recognize that some of these things have some very sentimental value. And I think the additional 2 weeks is going to give him some time to make a firm decision one way or the other as to whether or not to donate or remove one of the extra vehicles or to insure it. I think that gives some clear time to really go through that process, take some time to figure out if he's ready to let go of it or if he's ready to take the step to insure it, to keep it if it does have that kind of sentimental value to it. Maybe it'll also give him some time to take apart those pallets and store the lumber neatly. I think it's not unusual for people to have a wood pile in their backyard if it's piled neatly. I don't think pallets all over your backyard is appropriate either, though. And I think I agree, it is health and safety, but a lot has been done. A lot has been tidied up. A lot is better than it definitely was. And certainly there are plenty of other people in the neighborhood who have more than one vehicle that they're currently working on in their yard. They have things that they're working on. They've had long lawns. They have other things in the neighborhood going on. So, I think everyone's got their threshold of what unsightly is, and I think Mr. Wong's definitely done a lot of work to get towards it. And I think 2 more weeks will give him that opportunity to really make some firm decisions in his mind and rally his family to get those last few things together so that it is in compliance. And if it's not, then I guess we have to go in and we have to help as the city.
All right, so I think, good discussion. I think logically what we should do is take a motion to put this off, adjourn it for 2 weeks. What's the date in 2 weeks? October 4th? Yeah, October 4th. With the idea that specific attention would be placed, specific attention would include dealing with the vehicles and the pallets. My suggestion is we get that on the floor. If that passes, then it passes. If it doesn't pass, then we would probably have the staff recommendation on, which is in the package. Okay, so you're moving that? So that,
Sure.
to put it off 2 weeks, moved and seconded. Now, discussion on that, Councillor Day.
But yeah, I appreciate and the patience of everyone is great, but I don't think 2 weeks is going to do anything more than frustrate our staff for another 2 weeks. If we look at page CNCL 5, it specifically lists every item that was supposed to be moved and every item that Mr. Wong agreed to move. So just CNCL A, B, and C. We don't need staff to give us a list, it's already there. Secondly, I'm not sure if everyone working from home, I'm sitting here in council chambers and have the pictures that were taken today. And there's still garbage, there's still tarps, there's still, containers loaded with junk. I mean, it's just never ending. And so, staff were there today, they're doing their job. I think we need to support our staff. It's been over 10 years. So I won't be supporting the 2-week extension, and I would like to ask staff to get started on the long form to get the container removed.
Yeah, that's outside, and
Yeah.
staff has our comments on that.
Yeah.
Let's see now. Councillor McPhail.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. I won't be supporting the recommendation on the floor. I agree with what the previous speaker said. I just have a question through you to staff in regards to the vehicle registration. Has Mr. Wong been asked to provide that before? Because, is this just an exercise in futility?
Through your worship to Councillor McPhail, no, he has not been asked to provide the vehicle registration before. It was believed from the get-go that this was a derelict vehicle. What was presented was the impression that there were 2 registered vehicles, and it was determined that those vehicles were ancillary to what we were looking at, which were the 2 derelict vehicles today. So he has not specifically been asked to register them, but he's aware that he can only have 1 on his property that is derelict.
Thanks for that clarification.
Okay, I don't see any more speakers, so then I'll need to see your hands on this. So to adjourn this for 2 weeks, all those in favor? So that's the mayor, Councillor Steves, Wolf, it keeps changing. Wolf, McNulty, Steves, Liu, and Au. Those opposed? Oh, I'm sorry, just a minute. I've seen 2 more hands up here. Councillor Wolf, Councillor McNulty, did you want to speak to this?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay, those.
Thank you.
Then I'll say those opposed.
Thank you.
Councillor Hobbs, Councillor Day, Councillor McPhail. That's all I'm seeing. So that is carried. I just want to say to Mr. Wong, I believe staff and City Council have been unbelievably understanding in your situation. I believe you can see from the vote and from the comments that understanding has come to an end. Now, you need to deal with the vehicles, you need to deal with the pallets, the container will be dealt with separately, other items could be involved. This needs to be done, and frankly, no more excuses. So I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
And seconded. All those in favor, that's carried. That brings us to our General Purposes Committee meeting. Just hang on a sec. I'll call the General Purposes Committee meeting to order. May I have a motion on the minutes? Moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, carried. We then have a presentation by Metro Vancouver. There's been an adjustment in terms of the speakers. It's now the CAO of Metro Vancouver, Jerry Dobrovolny, who is with us, and also Sean Galloway from Metro Vancouver. So, gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody, and good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to present Metro 2050, the draft update to the regional growth strategy. As you heard, my name is Jerry Dobrovolny. I'm the Commissioner and Chief Administrative Officer of Metro Vancouver. Chair Dhaliwal sends his regrets. He had a conflicting Burnaby City Council meeting. He was trying to adjust agenda items and was not able to adjust the order to attend. I'd like to begin our presentation in a good way and respectfully acknowledge that the Metro Vancouver region's residents live, work, and learn on the shared territories of many Indigenous peoples, including 10 local First Nations: Katzie, Kwantlen, Coquitlam, Matsqui, Musqueam, Kakite, Semiahmoo, Squamish, Tawasin, and Tsleil-Waututh. We're blessed to live in a region that is as beautiful as it is abundant. As a region, we enjoy healthy ecosystems, a vibrant local economy, and strong and resilient communities. We all contribute to making this region strong. Some communities are home to our drinking water reservoirs. Some communities host our industrial lands and business districts. Other communities support the bulk of our agricultural lands and the food security they represent. And all of our communities are great places to call home. Each individual member is helping to make the region successful. None of this is by accident. We have all benefited from the thoughtful and sometimes difficult choices made by those local government leaders who came before us. They made wise long-range planning decisions like protecting critical conservation areas, preserving agricultural land, and investing in public transit when cities across North America were building highways. Their foresight and their regional plans helped us to set us up for success. Now it's our turn to make those thoughtful decisions about how our region will change over time. Our challenges are many: a limited land base, high housing prices, and rapid population growth. We know we must do better in terms of helping all people in our region to thrive regardless of age, income, or background. And climate change is undoubtedly the greatest challenge of our time. This is not a time to go it alone. More and more, we recognize that individual cities and towns are not equipped to face the 21st century challenges on their own. Now, more than ever, this is a time for cooperation, cohesion, and most importantly, for dialogue. And that's why Metro 2050 represents to me. That's what Metro 2050 represents to me. Our commitment to keep talking, to work alongside each other to find solutions to these challenges, and to take advantage of opportunities in our path, to learn together and to revise our plan periodically so it stays current and ambitious. I just want to mention that over the next 3 months, we will be visiting each member jurisdiction with this presentation, and we are very pleased to be here in Richmond today, albeit virtually. Part of the reason we're here today is to emphasize to you how important this 80-page plan is to everything else we do at Metro Vancouver. How we plan for projected growth and land use in the region has a massive impact, for better or for worse, on our responsibilities as local governments, including regional utilities and services provided by Metro Vancouver. If we choose a sprawling development pattern, we also choose to spend more down the road on expanding and maintaining inefficient infrastructure and inefficient transportation and transit systems. Simply put, if we spread the population too thin, it has budgetary implications for us all. We end up with miles of pipes and roads that are much more expensive to maintain. And those aren't the only costs that we have to think about. In addition to the impacts of sprawl on affordability and equity issues, there are the health effects of time spent in traffic and from poor air quality due to emissions. Choosing compact, complete communities, on the other hand, means greater efficiencies in protecting things we value, like our industrial capacity, our sensitive natural areas, and our food-producing lands. And it will mean reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. That compact development pattern also has important resilience benefits, and these past 2 years have highlighted the importance of planning for a resilient region. For example, the challenge of COVID-19 has taught us the essential value of protecting our conservation and recreation lands and making sure that we expand our parkland to meet the growing popularity of parks and trails. And our experience this summer with extreme heat, drought, and rampant wildfire demonstrates that climate action and planning for resilience cannot be delayed, which is why we are committed to achieving carbon neutrality by 2050 and building communities that are more resilient to natural hazards and extreme weather. These are the principles that you will see shine through on every page of Metro 2050, the update to the regional growth strategy. I also want to extend my gratitude to you and your staff for the comments and input provided so far. They are important contributions to the drafting of Metro 2050. I know as you look through this document, you'll see that it reflects the issues that you've raised and the solutions you've proposed. This is your plan, and we cannot get it over the finish line without your help. I know Sean and his team really value your participation and engagement because it helps to make the final product better. We're listening to you, and we want to hear your input on the draft presented to you today, because together we make our region strong. So now I'll turn it over to Sean to walk through this afternoon's presentation, and we're happy to take questions and comments. Thank you. Sean?
Thank you, Jerry. I just want to confirm you can see the presentation on the screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thank you, Jerry, for that. And again, today is really about taking you through Metro 2050 and hitting the high points on what are the changes, and talking a little bit about this is an update and moving through the comment period that we're going through right now, and the next steps as we get through that process. There's been a long history of regional planning within Metro Vancouver, and the most recent plan, as many of you know, is Metro 2040, which was adopted by all member jurisdictions in 2011. And so we've had 10 years with the current plan in its 20-year time horizon, and we're now taking stock of 10 years of implementation and what we've worked through, and the challenges that have changed over those 10 years, and I'll talk a little bit about those in a second. And the growth strategy is defined within, what has to be in a growth strategy is defined within the Local Government Act. And again, this is about working together in a collaborative manner to forward the region's strategic vision. So the scope of the update, as I mentioned, we've had some great successes in Metro 2040, and we want to build on those, and this is an opportune time to do that. We have 10 years of implementation, and there are some things in that their policies could be adjusted to reflect some of those changes. And in addition, there are some critical challenges that we face today around things like climate change, as Jerry mentioned, and housing that weren't in the same state in 2011 as they are today in 2021. I'd say one of the other big components around this opportune time to connect the pieces is that TransLink is also preparing the regional transportation strategy, also known as Transport 2050, and this will help us to ensure that our policies within each of those documents are aligned as we move on. In terms of engagement, the process has started about 2.5 years ago, and has the connections with your staff, staff across the region, and councils across the region, stakeholders, regional agencies. And we've had events with the public. We've produced themed areas around policy, and you would have received those summaries of those policy reviews in the earlier part of this year, and of course through the Regional Planning Committee and the Board of Metro Vancouver. I've seen all of the policy reviews and the public engagement and all the pieces that have come to the draft that you see in front of you today. So, and in terms of the engagement, we're now into the comment period, as noted at the bottom of the slide, and it was released. The draft was released to all member jurisdictions and agencies at the end of July, and now we're going through a process of engaging with each council and member jurisdiction and agency to begin to understand where policies could be augmented to better reflect the local context. And so, as I said, this is an update, so this is really building on the strengths of Metro 2040. So a lot of the content that's in the plan, in the draft that you see before you today and in the coming months is really being ported over from Metro 2040. And we have set up, as required by the legislation, the Intergovernmental Advisory Committee, which is made up of your staff around the region, planning directors and managers from around the region, in First Nations, Port Authority, TransLink, and other such agencies to begin to work through the issues that are happening in the region where we can apply the right policy objectives to support solutions to those issues. In terms of the plan itself, as many of you may know, the population projections, 1 million people will move to the region by 2050. To support that, we need about 500,000 new homes and 500,000 new jobs. So we're really, on a yearly basis, it's about 35,000 new residents coming to the region each year. And we continue to manage those projections and work through those projections as we get out into 2050. And then we ground truth these with each member jurisdiction. The plan itself the current plan has 5 goals. We're maintaining the 5 goals, but there is one new goal in Goal 4. We've consolidated other goals to maintain the 5, but providing diverse and affordable housing choices is a new goal, and that's to reflect the changing dynamics since the plan was originally passed in 2011. So what's new? First, we have in working with the members, we've come to understand that there are many centers across the region, and so we wanted to provide greater clarity, as some centers are identified the same but have very different growth outputs. And so in an effort to provide further clarity, we've created some refinement to the urban centers framework in the frequent transit development areas. And associated with that, we've delivered or have put on the major transit growth corridors, and this is to supplement the frequent transit areas and connect what TransLink's coming out with in their major transit network and aligning growth objectives with centers and corridors and the major transit network that is coming out in Transport 2050. Target around redeveloping and new housing, affordable housing in transit development areas, frequent transit development areas and urban centers, a 15% target. Again, policies to encourage affordable housing to happen around transit, as we know that transit investment does bring up land values and needing to work at an increasing level to deliver affordable housing near those areas. Stronger protection for industrial lands and flexibility within those lands near rapid transit stations for potential residential. And stronger climate action policies, really looking to target 50% of land for nature across the region, 40% on tree canopy, and the last 2 around building stronger relationships in terms of equity outcomes and with First Nations across the region. Last thing I'll note about all of the items that you've seen on both these slides is these are regional targets, and they have to happen within the local context. Our policy framework isn't nuanced to be specific to each member jurisdiction, so these targets are region-wide targets, and understanding that some areas may achieve more given their local context than the target, where others may not achieve as much because the local context is different. And so remembering that the targets have to be extrapolated across the region as a whole. In terms of opportunity for comment, as I noted, the plan was released in July of this year, and we're now coming out to each of the councils and the agencies and the stakeholders to do this presentation and support the review of this plan, looking for comments to be coming back to Metro in November or November 26th of this year, and then with the opportunity to work through any prevailing issues that might arise from that comment period. In terms of fall engagement, as I noted, we'll be doing these presentations to each of the councils. There's social media. We're looking for feedback. We're holding open houses in certain member jurisdiction areas. We have another intergovernmental advisory committee meeting to work with your staff and other staff across the region, and we'll be holding public webinars to further convey information about the plan. And lastly, in terms of process and next steps, again, comment period between now or between July and November. Once we get the comments in, we'll have to take the opportunity to reassess in December to see if we can still look to move forward for bylaw readings in the start of the new year, given the comments and the changes that may or may not need to be necessitated. And then we look to move into signatory adoption of final bylaw reading. The schedule that you see has been worked through the board level with the desire to finish this process prior to the next election cycle, but we understand that coming December, there may need to be adjustments given the comments that we've received back from each member jurisdiction commenting agency. So with that, I believe I'm open or in your hands for questions.
Okay, thank you for that very interesting presentation. I don't see any hands that are up. I take it for staff that an analysis is being made and something will come back to our council as to recommendations for the position and comments we may want to forward on this one. Would that be accurate?
Yes, Your Worship. We did present a preliminary report to the Planning Committee in June, and we're currently reviewing the document in more detail, and we will be bringing a more detailed report through committee prior to the deadline in November.
All right. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to thank the delegation. Thank you for that very interesting presentation. Long way to go. I'm sure you're anxious to get to the other 21 municipalities in the First Nations. Interesting procedure. But thanks for coming out, and there'll be more discussions between Metro Vancouver and Richmond, and we'll be seeing you at the board level as well. So thanks to both of you for coming. Okay, with that, we've got the other item on the agenda, the Energy Poverty Reduction Toolkit for low-income households and their service providers. Peter Russell, do you want to say anything about that?
Mr. Chair, there's one small error in the report. I wanted to point the committee to GP8. In the third paragraph, it starts with additionally. In the third line in that paragraph, it notes that the poverty reduction plan is scheduled brought forward in late 2020. Clearly, it was in 2020.
Okay.
Other than that, Mr.
All right, Councillor Liu.
Thank you. Through you to staff, thank you for this report. I think that this is a great opportunity to support people who have lower incomes to reduce their GHG footprint and also to save money. We already have some programs in place that do recommend to people different ways to lower their footprint too. And so, both programs will continue going in concert with each other.
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, yes, absolutely. That will most certainly make sure this program recognizes what's currently occurring and further that participation.
Thank you.
Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. Thank you very much, Mr. Russell, for this report. So I'm a little confused. We're going to be spending $100,000, 30 from the city, 48 from BC Hydro, and $18,000 from IVEY. This is just for a study, is that correct?
Through the chair, Councillor Day, it's actually engagement, so there'll be quite an extensive engagement with nonprofit sector leaders and community leaders who have knowledge of this issue, and there'll be a deliverable will be a toolkit that can be used ongoing by the service providers and those low-income households. And then, as it states in page GP 10, phases 3 and 4, there's some evaluation as well, and reporting out on outcomes.
All right. I guess what I haven't seen in there is, people who are living in poverty are almost always renting, and if they're living in poverty, they can't afford to make, improvements to the weather stripping and the windows and whatnot. So will this report deal with how we can hold landlords accountable to making sure that there isn't, huge gaps in the windows and no weather stripping?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, through the engagement, the goal is to encourage participation of landlords. This issue has been come to our attention, of course, and based on that participation, we hope that we can support landlords in their decision making as part of this toolkit. But specifically, the scope of this would be focused mainly on the toolkit and the engagement plan.
All right, well, I hope that when this comes back that we'll be able to really understand just, how difficult it is for people who are renting substandard housing. Because let's face it, with all, the houses that have been bought as investment, most landlords aren't interested in doing any upgrades because they're going to tear the house down anyhow. So I think the problem is a big one, and maybe this is an important piece of the pie. So thank you for your work.
Okay, Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, for your worship, to staff. Just a couple of questions. Before that, let me just clarify, probably to your worship, when people are putting their hand up, like mine is now automatically wanting to put the hand marker up. So since the last update on Zoom, some people might wonder why their hand is showing up. It's because it automatically recognizes your hand. And that's what's catching some people. Sorry, let me get to the question. On GP10, the final page of the report, it does mention under the financial impact, $30,000 would be from the approved budget. My question is, would more go towards something else? Like, could this be made better with an additional improvement of funding, or at the next budget cycle? Could we be asked, like we typically are at the end of the budget approvals, here's some other things for consideration? Could we get a better model out of this, I guess I'm asking. And in relation to that, it says further back in the report that it's a 14 to 18 month program delivery. So I assume that would be for all the 4 phases. But then if we have the toolkit, it could be used for years to come after that. Is that correct?
To the second question, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Wolf, that is correct. It's going to be a resource for the city. And to your first question, the current budget meets the needs of the project.
Great, thank you.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you for your report. I thought a very, very good report, to step in the right direction to help those low-income folks. I believe the $30,000, and that's what we're putting up, is a good investment to help improve the quality of life of many of our citizens within there. I guess a question to staff following up. To me, this would have greater application if you're going to put a toolkit together. Hopefully, that this would be available to anybody in the community to follow along to take actions to reduce GHG emissions. Is that not correct? Could have greater application.
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, absolutely. There will be, I'm sure and certain there'll be items and information that can be translated broadly. Mainly the focus would be on those needs of those low-income households. But yes, there are opportunities for all households. I would note, and it's noted in the report as well, the Community Energy and Emissions Plan direction to retrofit existing buildings. There will also be great benefit in this engagement for helping staff understand how that can be carried out as well.
Yeah, I think things that you will point out probably could be applied and flagged with developers that are building. Nobody says every house that's being built, even right now, and regardless of the house, is tremendously energy efficient. Sometimes you need this improvements, different codes, etc. You need to show people where these improvements are to continue to make buildings efficient. So anyhow, I think it's a good investment. I thank you for coming forward to it with it, and hopefully that we can, what you come up with, we can get that information out in a positive manner to all our people in our community, and those in particular that you're doing it for. So good job all around. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Rao.
Yes, Worship. Well, I want to commend staff for bringing this forward, because I think the concept of energy poverty is not being well understood by people. And the fact that, as staff had pointed out in the report, Richmond is having a higher proportion of low-income households living in energy poverty. I think this is a problem again. Seems to be not visible to many people. So I thank staff for bringing this forward. I have a question. Now, my understanding is that this is a twofold process. So staff is talking about developing a toolkit through dialogue, and then once the toolkit is being developed, use it again for further the dialogue in the community. Am I having the right understanding?
Through the chair to Councillor Au, that's correct.
Yeah.
Your reading of it is correct.
Yeah, I asked this question because you mentioned about Vancouver and also you mentioned about Boston. So I suppose perhaps some of the tools that they have developed could be used by us as well, right? So instead of taking two steps, can we kind of use what has already been developed by Vancouver or Boston or elsewhere, and then start the conversation on bringing into the awareness of people and developing strategies for dealing with the problems? I mean, do we need to have actually two steps, or just can we have one integrated step?
Through the chair, Councillor Au, certainly the benefit of working with the same contractor who did the projects in Boston and Vancouver has great benefit to the city and carrying over those lessons. And I do believe the steps that are recommended in this approach makes the most sense for allowing time for new ideas to emerge, the engagement to be rich, and to create a quite a useful product for the city.
Okay, good. Yep, thank you.
Okay, someone want to move the recommendation? So it's moved and seconded. Further discussion on it? All those in favor? Anybody opposed? So that is carried. Someone want to move